What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Okay, so again, hair flip. So yeah, today we have this advertisement about selling of one of Russian dachas, which is like a countryside house. And whenever you go through the pictures, by the way, the dacha costs like 200,000 rubles, which is like $2,000. And so yeah, whenever you go through the pictures, you see this guy who is watching the address of Putin to the nation or some other platform or some other video interview with Putin, and he is watching this extremely confidently, extremely carefully. He does not want to miss any single sound that his favorite president is making. I would not be surprised to see if there was some kind of cable leading from a TV to this guy head or anything like this, so the propaganda is directly downloaded into his brain. So guys, at the same time, comments under this picture are saying, well, 200,000, it's a pretty good deal. I mean, imagine buying the entire countryside house for $2,000, right? So people are asking, is this guy also coming as a part of a deal? Because they'll be pretty interested and pretty curious to have some political late night talks in the kitchen with this guy, because yeah, trying to change the mindset of a Z-Patriot is extremely complicated. But at the same time, it will be pretty interesting to hear all his theories about why the Z army is the greatest army in the world. So yeah, guys, also let me know down below in the comments, would you want to argue with this guy who just finished listening the address of Putin? Right, now guess what? Exactly, it is time to get serious. And let me first give you an update from the south and the east of Ukraine, where one of the biggest Z-bases in Luhansk was destroyed. Then we're going to talk about Ukrainians recapturing crucial land, not in just one place, but in two different areas, and the Z army dispersing across Ukraine, potentially leaving them more vulnerable. This was a pretty good day, to say the least. And guys, as always, just a very quick disclaimer. Unfortunately, my channel is shadow banned by YouTube. The number of views is decreasing with every single video I upload. Not too many of you guys are receiving notifications. So for us not to lose each other, can you please simply like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you do not receive notifications that I did upload a video, please check my channel daily manually. I also significantly reduced the number of footage I censor, because at this point it does not matter, every single video I upload receives limitations right away, but still I have to censor 1 or 2 videos per episode, because they're still way too bad for YouTube, and this can cause my channel to be deleted completely, which obviously I want to avoid happening. But if you want to see fully uncensored episodes, in addition to one extra chapter, it will be available exclusively to my Patreons. This is the best way to support the channel right now, since I'm not receiving that much revenue from YouTube anymore. And the link to my Patreon, guys, is down below. Thank you so much. Now let's continue. And so, if you remember from my yesterday's episode, we did talk about one of the biggest attacks against the Z airfield in Crimea. And well, apparently today the Ukrainian army, they gave us some statistics which exactly equipment has been destroyed. Specifically, they did mention 5 S-400 launchers, 3 radar stations, then 1 command center, 1 Fundament M integrated airspace surveillance system, which is used for S-400 and Panzer defense systems. And allegedly, attack MS was used during this attack by Ukrainians. And well, estimated cost of all the equipment which has been destroyed is to be approximately $500 million. In addition to that, according to President Zelensky, as a result of constant attacks against Russian vessels in the Black Sea, they literally had to hide them, and allegedly they transported some of them to the Caspian Sea, so there is not that many Z Navy vessels right now in the Black Sea, which reduces the potential attacks against the south of Ukraine at least a little bit. Next we go to the east of Ukraine. Our first stop brings us to Terny, where Ukrainian artillery was able to repel an assault attack of Russians along with their 2 armored vehicles. And then in another settlement called Ocheretnie, there was a significant battle for one of the local sub-electrical stations, and the side which is controlling it has some kind of an advantage over the settlement. Right now Ukrainians, they still have full control over it, and right here is the video of one of the most recent attempts by Russians to capture it, which ended in complete failure from their side. Our next stop brings us to the north of Vasilievka, where Ukrainians were able to destroy an artillery firing position of Russians. But without a doubt, one of the most significant events which happened over the last several days is that Ukrainians were able to destroy a pretty big command center, one of the biggest ones to be honest, in Luhansk region, with the code name Center. As you can see right here is the video of the consequences of this attack, and besides the command center, one of the pretty much brain centers of the entire eastern Russian army in Ukraine, it is also reportedly there was a pretty big concentration of Russian military vehicles, and majority of them were either also severely damaged or fully destroyed. And this was pretty much the defense by Ukrainians. At the same time, because Ukrainians were also able to recapture some crucial positions in the east. Also, according to my yesterday's episode, Russians were victoriously retreating from Kreminna, abandoning some positions, and well, recently we received even more news that Ukrainians are now advancing to the south of Kreminna and also close to Novomikhailivka, and they are able to regain some lost previously positions. Kreminna, if you remember, it's been pretty much in the center of our attention for at least almost 2 years at this point, and so Ukrainians are finally making progress towards getting closer back to this crucial settlement. And if you remember, I did promise that there was a second place, a crucial one, where Ukrainians were able to recapture some very important territory, and this place is something what we already talked about in today's episode, Ocheretnie. If you remember when I was talking about this electrical substation, and so apparently according to this map presented to us by the deep state, as you can see, Ukrainians were able to reduce the controlled area by the Russian forces, exactly approximately next to this electrical substation. And the reason why it is so important is the following. So, if you remember in the past, one of the most favorite tactics of Russians, which they did use in Bakhmut and in Avdiivka, is that whenever they were approaching the settlement from two different directions, specifically from the north and the south. And then whenever they were trying to encircle the remaining Ukrainians inside the city, well, Ukrainians unfortunately had nothing else to do other than to retreat to save lives. And so, right now it is exactly what is happening. So, Russians are obviously trying to advance to the west, northwest of Avdiivka, specifically next to a settlement called Berdichi and Semenivka, located right here on this map. And so what they do is exactly the same tactics. They try to approach to the north, next to Ocheretnie, and then next to the south, to Umanske. So, to eventually, it is at least according to their estimations, they will be able to encircle the remaining Ukrainians and potentially capture this territory. And while Ukrainians, by not letting them advance to Ocheretnie, they are so far preventing the advancement of Russians to the north. So as of the moment of recording this video, Russians are not advancing, Ukrainians are able to get rid of potential encirclement, and the fight to the northwest of Avdiivka still continues. But this is not the only thing which is happening right now worth of yours guys' attention, because according to one of the earlier reports by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians right now are advancing, or at least they're trying to advance, in 3 completely different directions. They are dispersing their forces across entire Ukraine, and guess what? These 3 different directions, they do not even have that much proper communication between them. So it feels like that each commander is tasked with doing something, no matter the cost, and they're like, well, okay, so we are tasked to go to the west, we're tasked to advance forward, we don't care about anything else. So, I mean, it's obvious, whenever there's no cooperation in the combat activities, the results are not that extraordinary, to say the least. It's not like that we should expect anything more from the ZR army anyways. And as a result of this dispersion, obviously, particular front lines, the east, the southeast, they are becoming a little bit more vulnerable because the Russian army is literally just spreading itself thin. But unfortunately, it's not as perfect as it might seem, because as of right now, since the beginning of this war, it is estimated that Russian Z army has 15% more soldiers in Ukraine in comparison to the start of this special military operation. And to give you specific numbers, approximately 360,000 Russians were used in the very beginning, and now this number increased to on average 470,000, almost 500,000. And so some of the questions that you guys might have right now is that why Russians need so many soldiers in Ukraine? Why they started advancing so suddenly in so many different directions? Well, the answer could be that Putin now has another deadline in his mind. So let's talk about this right now. And guys, this chapter will be for Patreon exclusive only because I want to give some additional benefits to my Patreon members. So if you want to keep watching today's episode, please go ahead and check my Patreon. The link is down below. This is the best way to support the channel. Once again, the monetization from YouTube is almost non-existent at this point. So yeah, as always guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe because of this YouTube shadow ban thing, so we don't lose each other. There are some other ways to support my work, all the links are down below, whether this is a Patreon, PayPal donations, or simply merch purchases. Follow me on Instagram, and see you tomorrow.